Just want to make sure that you didn't want to leave the stage too long.
Yep. Okay. So the next panel that's coming up is Malta Blockchain Island, and the moderator for the panel is Stephen Meade. So is Stephen already here? Nope. Yep. Here he comes. All right. So Stephen is the founder and chairman of Moneta Pro, and Moneta Pro is a closed-loop payment system for global non-cash trading. And Mr. Meade is also the principal in the holding company Big Bamboo, which was formed to help bring companies from conceptualization to creation. So what I'm going to do is hand the microphone over to him and let you take it away, sir. Oh, you've got a microphone already. So let's give him a big round of applause. Welcome.
Tessie.
Who are the panelists?
Are they coming? Introduce them, right? Come on.
Yeah, that's what I was waiting on. Who else is coming up?
Announce the other panelists.
All right, so our other panelists that will be coming up here are going to be Steve Tendon from Change Strategies and Oliver Rosa from Bankful. So if you could make your way up to the stage also, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
There we go. Perfect. How are you? Good. So starting in typical moderator fashion, since Ahballa just went, we're going to let the other two guys do quick intros, and then we'll jump in. As long as that microphone started, give us a quick little intro and background, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. You want to go first?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. So hi, my name is Oliver. I am representing Bankful, which is a multi-asset exchange platform. And I'm also here as function of the IDACB and Government Blockchain Association.
Good morning, everybody, and first of all, thank you, CoinAgenda, for inviting me here. I am Steve Tendon, Director of Change Strategies, giving strategic advisory services to all sorts of companies that want to enter the blockchain space. I've been working with Ahballa on the regulatory framework here, and probably can claim that the statement blockchain island originated from an evening after my birthday. I was probably not sober, and I came up with that word, so thank you.
Good. Well, I like the term blockchain island, but I've joked with Ahballa and these guys. To me, I think it ultimately should be called innovation island, because we don't know what's going to evolve next past blockchain or anything else, and I like where that's going. But let's start at the end. So in terms of what we're looking at with blockchain, we're going to stay on a Malta theme here. There's a lot of unique aspects when you're looking around the world. What are you seeing in terms of innovation for not only Malta as a jurisdiction, but other places you guys have looked at for companies?
So actually, I think now we are at the right place at the right time, and Malta has become the most important country so far in blockchain. The regulation that we have here is unique in the world, and actually, I think all the ICOs, that's why also a lot of these exchanges come here now, will understand in short time that it's the best place to be, and we will have a big run on that small island. So, it will be very interesting.
Perfect. Steve?
Well, I like your idea of the innovation island. And why would it be a great place for innovation? I think it's maybe the geography or not the phases of the moon and so on. But remember that here we have the place where Professor Edward de Bono invented his lateral thinking approach. So it's kind of a place of inspiring innovation. And even if you look at the history of the island with all the huge movements of different interests coming in and out of the island, that has generated a lot of innovation. Even ages ago, with the great siege of Malta, 1565, if you just look what happened there was a lot of innovation innovation in warfare, for instance. And maybe that comes from the fact that this place is constrained. It's small. You need to overcome a lot of obstacles, and that gets your gray cells to trigger and think. And I think that is what we are seeing here. The effort we have made with this regulatory framework is really a huge collective work of many people just putting their heads together, like I have seen in no other country or in no other experience I've been part of. So I think it is the smallness. That is what brings the greatness.
Yeah, and we've looked at jurisdiction around the world. We've looked at legal. We've looked at banking. A lot of things. Ahballa, I know you've been working hard on Delta Summit, and what I find unique about it, and we're going to talk about it a little later, is this is the only place we've seen where you actually have the ministers of the different channels aligned within the government. So my joke is, imagine, for those of you in the U.S., imagine being at an event where you have the head of the IRS, the head of the SEC, the head of the Federal Trade Commission, the head of immigration, the head of the Federal Reserve, all in a room supporting you and your efforts and your initiatives. It just, that kind of collaboration doesn't happen, and we haven't seen it anywhere else around the world. So with what you have coming up with Delta in October, what are you most excited about with getting everybody in the room and sort of moving in the same direction?
Well, definitely. I mean, there's two elements to that. I mean, even the name Delta, Delta Summit, for those of you who are math nerds, you know that in maths, Delta means change. And this is exactly what's happening. Everything around us is changing. Like, take financial services, for example. Financial services is being disrupted like never before. We all know that trust has eroded in the financial industry quite a lot after the financial crisis. Financial institutions stopped innovating, and coming back to the word innovation is getting something that's already being done and doing it a little bit better. And financial institutions had bigger problems to deal with than to try to innovate, and that's why we noticed a lot of the innovation in financial services coming from tech companies. And we noticed a different breed of startups that started providing some of the services that we already used to them in a different manner. If we take financial industry and we say that the three pillars of the financial industry are payments, transfers, and loans. Nowadays, I can go and make a payment on PayPal, do a transfer using TransferWise, and go and get a loan from a peer-to-peer lending platform. So the bank, which is traditionally providing these three services, is not necessarily the go-to place to provide this service anymore. And we need to address this, because fintech companies are changing the entire business model. Plus, we have a different type of consumer that is not getting any younger, which is the millennials. They are the ones that are going to replace the consumer base. And if you look at millennials, they're a completely different breed. They're these younger people that are just used to doing everything from a device in their hand, and they just don't even want to interact face to face with bankers or with people. I mean, I was reading a very funny statistic or two statistics recently. The first one said 75% of millennials would rather, 75% of millennials are much more excited about a financial product being launched by Apple or Google than the same product being launched by their bank. The same demographic, which is the funnier statistic, 76% of millennials would rather go to the dentist than speak to a human financial advisor. And that shows that we have a problem. I mean, they'd rather deal with an automated chatbot that is quite intelligent, and that's why a lot of disruption is happening on that front in terms of AI, than to go and speak to your human financial advisor, because the AI bot will capture all my behavioral traits and build a portfolio around all of that will manage my money. So it's a much more superior product. So with coming back to Delta, Delta signifies change. And we want to get all these people under one roof to, first of all, agree that change is inevitable. But we need to do something about it in order to foster innovation, in order to boost it, in order to enhance it. And that's why we're really lucky, because in Malta we have political will. We have all the right people agreeing that we need to move into this space. The new regulator is actually called the MDIA, the Malta Digital Innovation Authority. It's not the Malta Blockchain Authority or DLT Authority or AI Authority. It's digital innovation. And innovation is actually in the spirit of the law. And it has to be dynamic, because things change on a daily basis when it comes to technology. And this is why I said on stage earlier, it is a type of regulation of engineers by engineers. And we really see change happening from a technical standpoint every day. So we needed a law that is quite dynamic for us to be able to update it. In fact, even the update of the law, and then for those of you who had the time to read the laws, it's the prerogative of the minister to actually update certain elements of the law without it having to go through the long, tedious processes of updating the law, because we understand that technology changes quite rapidly, and we need to foster innovation and not stifle it. And for this reason, we have to be agile.
And again, this is where I landed on the term innovation when I spoke to you guys. A lot of times when you do a panel, or if I'm doing one, I want to create a little bit of conflict, a little bit of not animosity, but different point of views. We're not going to do that this time. We're going to do it a little differently. I was fortunate to be here at an event that Ahballa and the ministers had, and Tim Draper was on stage. And I know you've got Tim coming back and excited, but this concept of innovation and capital, Ahballa asked Tim Draper what I thought was a fair question: what can Malta do to be like Silicon Valley? And Tim, I pardon if this is being taped, in his smug, arrogant way, said, "Oh, you could never be like Silicon Valley. You could never do that." And I listened to him and I just shook my head, because in my opinion, we funded a bunch of companies through the years. We've had to deal. Silicon Valley doesn't have a lock on innovation, they had a lock on capital. And the innovators around the world had to go to Silicon Valley to beg for money. But that chain has been broken. You can get capital anywhere in the world. So now the idea becomes, where do you put your company? Where do you put the regulation? Because you can now raise capital. You don't have to go to the gardens of Silicon Valley to beg. Innovation can be created anywhere as long as you have capital to bring it to market. And again, that's where I think Malta's got a unique opportunity among other places, but the jurisdiction is there. What have you guys seen in terms of additional capital coming to look at companies that are based here, because you no longer have to run to the bastions of Silicon Valley to look for money?
Well, let me start by reflecting on this innovation, because what we are witnessing here is innovation in law. We are making new kinds of laws which create a new context where new kinds of companies, new kinds of businesses can thrive. So there is really no ambition to copy or to be a threat to Silicon Valley. We are playing another kind of innovation game, if you wish. And we know that capital goes where there is the greatest odds of having good returns. We strongly believe that what we're doing here in terms of innovation in legal context will attract not only capital in the form of funding and money, but also human capital, thinkers, innovators, entrepreneurs, people that want to have the freedom to pursue their big ideas, their big visions, and that will in turn be the catalyst that will bring together even the attraction for finance, for funding. So it's really a combination of factors that come into place. And if we look at what we would like this island to become the island, the innovation island, as you said, we are pushing towards the creation of new forms of legal personalities. This is a personal pet peeve of mine, but looking at what is happening in the world of the blockchain with decentralized autonomous organizations, smart contracts, and in the world of AI with autonomous things, you need to create a legal context where these new entities, which are not human, they are software, they are digital, can have a place where to thrive. Now, a DAO is a corporation. It will have self-sufficiency. It will be able to do business. It will be able to raise funds. It will be able to offer, negotiate, consume services with respect to human entities, individuals or corporations, but also with respect to other digital entities. So it's really a matter of creating a context where a new economy, a completely new economy might develop. And I'm not talking about the digital economy, which is almost, oldish, but the new decentralized economy. That is what is still to happen and what we would like to facilitate here on Malta, and thereby with this new economy have a completely new flow of capital as well.
What I think is very important is that we have the regulation here in Malta, not like other countries which just said that cryptocurrencies are not illegal. It is very important that we have the full regulation here, so that also is important for the investors. Because with this regulation and the Malta Digital Innovation Authority also comes the consumer protection and also the ability for insurance companies to insure funds. So that means when you run your ICO and you have your digital wallets and hold like 50 million in Ethereum, you will now also have a chance to get an insurance on this and maybe not lose your money to some hacks. And that's, I think, what also investors and especially institutional investors will like. So when they invest their money, they know that there's legal certainty about the ICO, about the funds, there's insurance company, there's a regulated market. So that becomes something which is much more attractive to investors, being institutional or private.
All right, so let's switch gears on the money side. Neil and I were talking last night, and Dennis, wherever the money guys are, I'm a big proponent when you're raising money. Raising money is easy. It's 3 simple words for traditional funding. ICO world makes no sense. Though the ability to raise money in these ICOs, we've been successful at it, but it still makes no sense. So in a traditional world, the real way to raise money is 3 simple words. Capital follows customers, right? When we were raising money, the first question we always get asked is, who's your customer? And I'm going to switch gears to Ahballa because you've got Wiser, which is your own private company, and you've ended up doing deals with Malta. Where's the thought process for Malta to become an innovation platform where companies that are here could actually pilot with the Department of Education or the finance? Where's the government's thought process in allowing companies to become pilot customers to prove it? Because you have 2 things that to me are fascinating. You're an EU country with an English-speaking infrastructure. So moving past the fundraising side into the actual execution side, where do you think Delta Summit and the government would fit in terms of helping these companies actually pilot products to bring to market that could become a unicorn somewhere else around the world?
This is a very good question, Stephen. I mean, like from a personal experience at the moment, like with Wiser, we're focused on a number of products. But take, for example, our software development side, which is the side where we build tech infrastructures for companies that are either using some form of blockchain architecture or are in need of an AI solution or AI-based solutions, or problem solvers. We try to solve clients' problem based on the functional and the technical requirements around it. At the moment, we have a problem which is a very good problem to have, but it is a problem nonetheless. Is the fact that the influx of projects that is coming to Malta just because we've announced that we are regulating the space is incredibly overwhelming. I mean, it takes us longer to vet the projects that are asking us to help them in their software development side than it is taking us to actually develop the product for them. So it is a great problem to have, but it is a problem nonetheless, because we would love as a private entity for this regulation to come into effect as soon as possible, because we'll have like a first filter from the regulators' side, a second filter from the other regulator side, which is the Financial Services Authority, and then when the ICO or the ETO or the STO is ready for them to have a platform that needs to be developed. We know that a lot of KYC, DD would have happened from governmental bodies that are meant to do this. At the moment, we are still in the self-regulation processes that it has become a little bit tedious. So we're quite thankful and grateful that we have these authorities that are being enacted, these laws that are going to support our own operations, and these different services that will come into effect that will even do certain things such as auditing. So this is providing even another product for us as a company to work on, because a new ecosystem will start, and as a requirement of the law, you need the software auditor. So there are two different types. There's the software developer, and that's what we currently do. But for those companies that are not even our clients, but they're seeking regulation and they want a third-party independent auditor, then that's another market that as a private entity would be interested in, as long as it's not already an existing client for us. So we're noticing products that are actually evolving and shaping up as the regulation is still being discussed, or since the regulation is still being discussed. In terms of customers, like you've asked, I mean, the regulation has gotten a lot of people to gravitate towards Malta, that again, we're quite thankful that customers are coming to us. We're still a startup in Wisers, my fourth company that I'm setting up. I mean, we're setting up from scratch, startup phase, but customers are coming to us because of a trigger, and that trigger is the fact that regulation has been announced. So it's one of those unique, rare cases where the authorities have helped in getting more businesses to companies. And we're not the only ones. I'm discussing this with a lot of my other colleagues who provide similar services, and they all have the same problem, which is, as I said, is a very good problem to have, so don't get me wrong. But we noticed that the government was, in this case, quite uniquely, our own trigger. Now, brings us back to you've asked about Delta, and this is what we are even doing at Delta. Delta at the moment, we're almost sold out as an event. We have a lot of entities, companies, projects that have come to us to be a part of Delta. But even as an event, we had to do due diligence on the projects. We had to vet a lot of these projects. We had to be in a situation where we're doing KYC on a project that just wants to exhibit at an event. But we know that since this is the government's official event, we can't afford to have a project that might potentially, not be the right fit to put it nicely. So we're noticing the evolution of this ecosystem is happening really fast. We're noticing the gravitation of talent, projects, and capital. Like I said on stage earlier, a lot of capital is coming to Malta seeking projects, and we can't even accommodate a lot of that capital yet because we don't have enough projects. So coming back to Tim Draper point, I will not say that Malta will be the Silicon Valley of blockchain, but I look forward to a near future where Silicon Valley would hope to be the Malta for blockchain, without sounding too arrogant.
And I appreciate that, Ahballa, and I know you well enough that I'm going to comment. That was a very governmental answer, very political answer. I'm looking for something a little more direct and entrepreneurial, and I don't think a good example, like Enzo's got a platform. If a company like what Enzo has wanted to partner directly with the Malta Stock Exchange, or somebody has an identity platform and needed to prove it out with medical records, or somebody has an education platform and needed to prove it out with a school. Where's the government's thought process? And again, this is what Neil and I were talking about, is where's the government's thought process of creating partnerships between the government and the startup to validate them as a customer? The regulation capital stuff will come later, but that next level is, how do you become a customer of the companies to validate them, to help them become more successful?
So again, on the expense on sounding like a government official, I'm not a government official. I advise the government, but I think this will sound like I'm being one. But and again, wearing the private sector hat now, honestly and truly, and you've been here a number of times, Stephen, this government really and truly have an open door policy. I mean, a lot of the companies that have come here to Malta from all over the world and asked to meet with government officials, they really did meet with government officials. I mean, we have the Junior Minister for Financial Services, Digital Innovation and the Economy, Mr. Silvio Schembri. I think he's bombarded with requests for meetings, and he's accommodating a lot of them, and so many of them are bringing solutions to Malta, and more often than not, they get channeled to the relevant authorities. I mean, there are, for example, Health Ministry. I mean, they are receiving a lot of solutions or projects or companies that are saying that they want to provide a solution that will put health records in Malta on the blockchain, and they're still meeting with them and listening to them, but obviously it needs to fit within a strategy for each and every relevant government department, which is why I think that it is good to have an open door policy. It's quite a unique situation to be in, but at the same time, we need to focus on the private sector. We need to focus on products that are given or provided to the masses. And I still think that there's a very good market for that, and the fact that we have this kind of regulatory framework, having a company that is providing a service and that company is actually regulated in a jurisdiction like Malta, gives comfort to both ends of the spectrum, to the investor, because as an investor with money, I'd rather invest in a company that is regulated than investing in one that is not. That's number one. Also, as a customer, anywhere in the world, if I know that the company that has built this service and providing it to me is licensed in a jurisdiction, and that license given by a government body, it gives me more comfort as a customer to use that product and to consume it, because at the end of the day, it does give it the credibility. So I hope that answers your question, Stephen.
Yeah, so we're going to wrap up with a couple things, and I know like Mike is here, Kostas has done probably more funding of companies and seen more companies. They run the D10E, they've done tons of global contests. As you're looking around the world, and we're one of the same things, we've looked at jurisdiction, we've looked at support, we've looked at funding. What are the top one or two things that you've seen most beneficial so far about being in Malta, either in terms of access or infrastructure or people or the fact that it's an English-speaking country? What are the one or two things for each of you that you've been most excited about or been most surprised by?
Well, hard to say only two things about this island because there are so many really. But I'd like to maybe pick up what Ahballa just said, the open door policy, and I would say that is like a feature of the whole island. It's open and welcoming to everybody. Just yesterday, I met some friends who came over from Belgium, and they were telling me the story that they had lost their phone on the bus. And then it was a long narrative of how they got it back, but that narrative went through a chain of people who just called each other and they were helping out without having any obligation of doing so. So that, I think, I would say, let's say one thing about Malta, it's just open and welcoming. The rest will come.
I would also say that the most important, but also you two said, is that the government welcomes that so much and pushes so much to regulation. I've never seen a country where a prime minister and the junior minister just on daily basis Twitter about all the ICOs come to Malta, all companies come to Malta and are so welcoming and helping the industry so much. And we have ourselves, I can confirm the experience, we have brought also clients to Silvio Scamri's office, and you just call and say that you have a project which want to come to Malta, and he's very helpful and welcomes the guests and listens to all of them. And this is, like, I think, unique in the world. Never saw something like that. And also with the Malta Digital Innovation Authority, I think it's very good to have. We have a track record of this. In gaming, we have the Malta Gaming Authority, which was following the same way of regulation. And I think the Malta Digital Innovation Authority will even become much more important because blockchain and DLT platforms will be like 100 times more or 100 times bigger than we saw in the gaming industry. So,
perfect. And Ahballa, anything in closing?
I mean, I'll close with what I started with. I'm really happy to see people who've flown from halfway across the world to come and be here in Malta. I hope we've helped in welcoming you here to Malta and to explain about some of the exciting developments that are happening here. And for those of you who are gonna leave, I genuinely hope they'll be able to see you again in October. Welcome to Blockchain Island.
All right, let's give all these guys a big hand. Thank you.
All right, great job. We got time for a couple questions for our panelists. If you guys have a question, just raise your hand. I'll bring the mic over. Any questions? Don't be shy. Yep. And say where you're from and your name.
Hello, I'm from Los Angeles. My name is Julian Zagelman. I'm with TMT Blockchain Fund. And the question I have for Maltese colleagues is, a lot of jurisdictions like Singapore comes to mind, started out with a lot of local government support and excitement towards the crypto sector, but then switched to a much higher level of skepticism and regulation because of the various types of companies that rushed in and established business in that jurisdiction. Has Malta seen that example, and what do you plan to do different?